Welcome to Talk Plus Water, the podcast associated with the Texas Water newsletter, which provides timely information on the spectrum of Texas water issues, including science, policy, and law. Texas Plus Water is published jointly by the Meadows Center for Water and the Environment at Texas State University, the Texas Water Journal, and the Texas Water Resources Institute at Texas A&M University. You can sign up for Texas Plus Water by visiting texaspluswater.org/newsletter. My name is Todd Bottler, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Texas Plus Water and the Texas Water Journal, as well as your host for Talk Plus Water. This is podcast number 15. My guest today is Dresden Farrand, Executive Vice President and CEO of the American Water Resources Association. Dresden, welcome and thank you for being part of Talk Plus Water.
Thank you so much for having me, Todd. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Well, great. And I appreciate you hanging with me through all the technical challenges we've had today. What was your little saying again?
My saying was that you have to have tech tolerance. You know, in the world where we have so much disruption around all the different technologies that people are using in all of their aspects of business, right? Whether it's research or field work or just your day-to-day collaboration on a project, we have to understand and get to learn all the new technologies that are out there. And it can be a pain, but I think you've done a fabulous job.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'm going to remember tech tolerance because I need tech tolerance about a dozen times a day, it seems like.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Well, hey, listen, let's go ahead and start off our conversation about water. And why don't you tell me first about your background in water and how you became involved with water issues?
Well, absolutely. The surprising note here for some people listening is that I actually don't have a water background. My background is in association management. So I've been in this profession for about 18 years. This is also where I have my 2 degrees, which is in nonprofit management and public policy. So someone like me, an association management professional, we are all about becoming experts in how do you run and grow a successful association, society, or nonprofit. When we look at the function of management from finance to programs and services, memberships, member engagement, policy, advocacy, education, content creation, all of the different ways that an association must really work in concert, using all of those components to make a really great member experience. And the board recognized that AWRA is entering into a new era. The previous leadership had been there for more than 3 decades, and they wanted to bring on someone who could sort of lead them into the next iteration of this organization and what it's going to be and how it's going to serve our members.
That is great. And, what's interesting to me is it's very different from what I've seen other water organizations do. You know, they get somebody who's been running a groundwater district or working for an environmental consulting firm or working for an NGO. And they ask them to run this, water entity, water association, and they don't have experience in all the things that you just mentioned, which are really critical to making the organization a success.
Absolutely. It's certainly not unique for some associations, particularly smaller societies, to hire someone who is within the industry or within the field. But you're right, the drawbacks may be that they might obviously have an expertise knowledge of the field and the industry that they've served or worked in or spent their career in. But the other aspects of management, particularly board governance, looking at volunteer management, as you know, nonprofits and associations deeply depend on the work of volunteers and committees. And that's a whole philosophy for how you manage and work with volunteers. Also, social media, and integrating technology. One of the biggest things for associations right now to stay relevant is they have to start adopting new technologies. And for years, nonprofits and associations have been very behind in that. We don't have an Amazon.com. We don't have streamlined technology. But what we have are these sort of hoops that we have to jump through or connect together, and it can be very torturous for our members. And so hiring someone who understands what technology expectations members have today across the generations in a membership is really critical.
I've been going through a crash course in Trello and Zoom and Buffer and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and et cetera, and it's LinkedIn. And it's, just think about, 10, 15 years ago or whatever, you right. mentioned all that. Someone would say, what are you talking about? Why do you need to know those things to run an organization associated with water? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the American Water Resources Association. Why don't you tell us about the AWRA?
Well, American Water Resources Association, called AWRA or ARA interchangeably, has been around for about 54 years. And our key mission is to be recognized as the preeminent multidisciplinary association for information exchange, professional development, and education about water resources and related issues. A big part of our work is really the advancement of water resources in terms of research, planning, development, management, education. The education philosophy for us is really about how are we training up and building up the young professionals that are coming up through our different pipelines. And because we are multidisciplinary, we have members that are from all different kinds of backgrounds. It could be physical, biological, social scientists, engineers, hydrologists, economists, academics. We have a very, very diverse membership because we do truly believe that in order to solve these problems around water resources, that we have to draw from all the disciplines, take in all the considerations in order to create some of the best solutions. So our core value is really making sure that we are bringing and collecting all of that information together, and then sort of the dissemination of those ideas and information that's collected in the field. And we make sure that we're able to use our voice in our conferences and meetings and webinars as a way to disseminate that information and start a conversation.
So how many members do you have?
We currently have around 1,600 members. That's included in the United States and abroad. And our members, we have several different committees that our members take part in order to stay connected. Anyone would be interested in joining those committees at any time. Our six are the Policy Technical Committee, which is a very popular committee. They write a policy statement at least annually, and you can go online and see their policy statements that they've written. They've been very well received. We also have our Technology Technical Committee, another really popular one in the ways that it's defining the role of technology in water resources by using comprehensive and collaborative approaches. We have our Future Risk Community, Integrated Water Resources Management, and Flowing Waters. So all of our committees are established by members, and they generally work on projects together or papers together that can be shared with the larger community of water resource professionals.
And so would you say that you have a distribution geographically of members out in the Western United States and in the Eastern and folks in the Midwest, or are you more kind of concentrated in terms of membership on the coast?
That is absolutely a great question. What many don't know about AWRA, and we as an organization need to do better at, is that we actually have a state section program We have 22 state sections that range all the way from Utah to New Jersey, to Alabama, to Alaska. And all of our state sections are their own independent 501c3 organizations that have their own membership. They have their own programs and services. They do their own marketing and communication, and they essentially run like an association that we are. So we're kind of considered to be the headquarters, if you will, but really and truly, we have some associations that have been around maybe just 2 to 3 years after this headquarters were developed. I believe that would be the Florida chapter or section. And I use chapter and sections interchangeably because every association is different. Some associations call them chapters, AWRA calls them sections. I've had the privilege and really pleasure of getting an opportunity to travel to 2 of our sections so far. I've been here a little less than a year. And then certainly being able to meet them at some of our 2019 conferences and meetings. These are an incredible group of leaders and volunteers who run these associations and who serve on their board. And a big part of what they try and do is some of the same things we try and do nationally, but at the local level. A lot of them are tackling making sure that there are student chapters at the colleges and universities in their state, making sure that students have an opportunity to present their paper and their research and be mentored. Many of them work on side projects to increase diversity in women in water resources profession. These sections are really, truly doing amazing work. So I can't tell you enough for your audience members. If you are in a state that has a section, you should please check out their work. You can go on our website, click on state section, and then there's a link to each of their websites.
So would you like to have more state sections? Are you recruiting for that, or just as people like in a state say, hey, we'd like to create one here, they just contact AWRA?
Absolutely. We are currently working with Minnesota, who does not have a state section there, but I was contacted by a woman who was very active in the Washington state section, and she moved to Minnesota, where we actually have a national board member living. And the 2 of them got together, and we've been working for the best part of this year on creating a Minnesota chapter. We certainly want to welcome more chapters. We also have the philosophy as a leadership, particularly speaking on the board's behalf, that we're not interested in having 54 chapter or sections just to have it. We're interested in quality. We're interested in having the right people at the table. It is a big commitment, and so you have to be very passionate about the work that you're doing and really what is the contribution you want to make, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind as a leaders, because every one of our section leaders are truly leaders in their own right. They're doing absolutely incredible work for their profession.
So let's move from members to accomplishments. As you mentioned, AWRA's been around for a long time. What are some of the things that you would consider the important accomplishments?
We've had a long history of accomplishments. I will specifically talk to 2 that I think were very big undertakings for the board this year, and I think are really important to mention. We took AWRA virtual back in June of 2019. This was quite a huge decision, especially for some of our board members to sort of wrap their head around. But statistically, if you look at all of the research that's out there, even in the private sector, going virtual is really the newest trend in terms of let's reinvest our dollars into our products. Let's reinvest our dollars into our membership and our member experience. Let's reinvest our dollars into the services that we provide that are going to meet all of our members and not just the small few who tend to participate the most. And so if you look at the research, particularly with small associations, it doesn't make sense to have such a large overhead, particularly if you are an association that doesn't interact with your members every day, which we don't. So for AWRA, it was a very big decision. They had been in the Middleburg, Virginia office for about 20 years. But with all the technology tools that we have at our fingertips today, it has been an absolutely flawless implementation. We kept all of our same numbers. We use a virtual management system in which we are always linked and connected. I could be in Fiji on a beach and you could call me at the office number and you never know. So we don't lose anything in that experience. And
now money, if you want to call you, some random time and say, okay, tell me, are you in Paris or where are you? Yeah.
Exactly. I'm at the China conference that we had in September. We are the not having that overhead cost. We have been able to do a lot more with our membership, and we continue to think about how are we going to reassign those monies to do better for our members. And that to me is incredibly exciting. And I think that, for a lot of folks that are used to sitting in an office and showing up, at 8 to 5, it can be hard to wrap your mind around. But with technology today, you don't need to have a brick and mortar. And so it was very brave, that step that our board took. The second thing that we did is we're really looking on how we become more green, living in the green economy, if you will. And you have a lot of associations who are doing that type of work. So, in making decisions based on, their impact. So one of the things that we did is we took Impact, which is our magazine. We took that virtually or digitally, and that has been a great opportunity for us to really understand how do our members like to receive content. How often do they download it? What articles are interesting to them the most? Because before we had it on a digital platform, we weren't getting a lot of that feedback information that you would if you are not using a digital platform. So now we know so much more, how long they stay on certain articles. We found out, surprisingly, most people are downloading our Impact magazine on a Sunday. It's a leisurely read. We about 60% of people who download Impact are doing it on a digital device, not necessarily on their computer. So what does that really say about Impact and what the usage is like? So that's been a great opportunity for us to learn more about our patterns of our members and how and what content they like.
So when I was able to help with the July issue last year of Impact on Texas, I understood that was going to be the first one that was not a print issue. And for me, that makes so much sense. The Texas Water Journal has always been, an online publication, and as Texas Plus Water has as well. And, I used to carry around a big, almost suitcase full of things I needed to read. And it was really starting to hurt my back. But now I just have my iPad. This probably have even more to read that I haven't gotten to yet. But that's a whole different world. If just 20 years ago, everything had to be printed out, and now we're just kind of like, why do I need this copy of this thing?
Right.
Yeah.
It's been interesting that you say that too, because I still feel like we're kind of still in that battle, right, Todd? If we had some members who say, hey, I missed my paper copy, or it was always left on my coffee table and my students would come and read it. So then there's that sort of word of mouth marketing that you may not get. It certainly still has a forward function. But this really speaks to the larger issue that associations, especially small science associations that we're all still on a tight shoestring budget, we have got to make sure that we're building a robust technology framework, right? Because a common excuse is that, well, not all members use emerging technologies and not everyone's going to miss their paper copy, but association leadership, they can't be driven by the lower common denominator of the membership. They also have to be driven about what is the changing times that are occurring. And so if you only operate from that lowest common denominator, then you're not growing and you're getting further behind. And that's not just me anecdotally saying that. That is what the research, frankly, indicates.
Well, my goal is for the science community to have the resources that the legal and business community have someday so that we can, splurge a little bit instead of we're always trying to do things on a shoestring budget. So let me ask you a little bit about advocacy. So you've got technical committees, the statements or the reports that they put out, or is that part of an advocacy mission as well? Do you interact with Congress or state legislatures?
We don't, because we are a 501c3. We are not a 501c6. So we have lobby restrictions. Our information certainly and our reports that you can find online are certainly informative and educational, where policymakers can read them. And we certainly try to send all of our information out to its highest, reach. Every now and again, we will sign a particular petition from a like partner. And of course, that is our way of helping, our network and our community and supporting their efforts. But we don't do any direct lobbying or advocacy. So in addition to the programs you mentioned, the publications, you have webinars and conferences. And so tell me about those. The Texas Water Journal is getting ready to start doing webinars. And I did a webinar for y'all. And I really enjoyed that. And so tell me a bit about your webinar program and your conferences, because I know you have a webinar coming up. I just got an email about it, or you have a couple of them coming up. We do. Our webinars are, and I'm not just saying this because I have to, or I'm partial, but they are incredibly popular and very, very well done. Michael Campana is our technical director. He is extremely well known. He's just a hero to in our community and really abroad. I haven't met anyone this year who does not know him by name. He puts together a really, truly outstanding program. In January, when I started, we had a webinar, I think the second week of January. We had over 600 attendees in that one webinar. Wow. Yes. It's incredible. Our numbers are very, very strong. And I think it's certainly attributed to his work and the work of the board of directors who put their minds together. And they're really at the pulse of, what research, we need to bring out and speak about, and what are hot topics, what are hot trends. And so they do a lot in putting together a really, really good program. I would say if there's anyone who's interested in thinking about our membership and would like to test one out, please go ahead and email info@awra.org, and we'd be happy to send you a free version of one of our webinars by recording. I will say, if you don't join AWRA, a webinar is $25 a piece. But a membership at AWRA is $189. And you get all 12 for free. So you do the math. For just a little bit more money, you could become a member and get all of those webinars. I also think that we're going to be doing a lot more with webinars in terms of training. And that's sort of a door we haven't quite opened just yet. When you think about membership, what's important for AWRA is that we are making sure that all of our members are accessing programs and services. So let me give you an example. Research indicates that the average organization commits about 80% of resources available to programs and services. 80% of our work is going to that, but oftentimes it's only really serving about 20% of our members. So what we have to really think about is, careful examination of the commitment of resources for each project in relationship to the number of members served. And we have to have sort of a rational framework that leads to, how do we serve the majority of our members with the resources we have? It's almost like making sure that we're providing the greatest service for the greatest number of members. And that's a formula we haven't figured out yet, but that's where we're moving. And so when we look at our membership, and we literally have 5 generations on our membership, right? From baby boomers to Generation Z, which are the 18 and 22-year-olds right now in the market. We are not addressing all of their needs. But we also have to realize as association professionals, you often can't do it all, right? But there has to be a way that we address it. So we're hoping to kind of beef up a little bit our learning opportunities, particularly looking at leadership development, which has been a really big buzzword in our community. Certainly hearing that at the section level when we talk to our section leaders. People want more aspirational leadership development and training, and as a complement to their education, as a complement to their expertise and their training.
So 2 plugs here for previous podcasts. The podcast last month that features Sarah Schlesinger for the Texas Water Foundation, they're starting a new water leadership program for Texas, and their first class is going to be this next year. And wow, that's a big focus for them. And Michael Campagna, of course, is how I became connected with AWRA through the July 2019 impact issue on Texas water and the webinar I did on the Edwards offer. But he has also been on Talk Plus Water. He was one of our first people to do it. And so I always appreciate, people who are willing to give something new a try like that, because it's hard to get people to say, well, sure, I'll come on your podcast, but I want to hear like 4 or 5 of them first. And there wasn't really anything for the first people who did it to hear. So they just had to kind of trust me. So tell me about, I want to hear about your conference in China, because I was just in China 2 weeks ago in Nanjing at Hohai University, at the Water University at their law school, and talking about transboundary water issues. And so what was your conference in China about, and where was it, in Beijing or someplace else?
Yes, it was in Beijing, and we actually had it in partnership with the Chinese Academy of Science, which has been a tremendous partner. We've been partnered with them for a couple of years. The title of our conference was Water Security, looking at new technologies, strategies, policies, and institutions. So it was really an incredible opportunity for people to hear what research is happening from all over the world. We had, I want to say it was around over 180 participants, if I can remember that number off the top of my head. We had a really good showing of student posters and presentations, and a really fantastic field trip, which was basically the South to North Water Diversion Project. We actually were able to partner with some of the folks down there and offer this field trip for free to be able to explore that. It's a multi-decade infrastructure mega project in the People's Republic of China. I think it was something like 44.8 billion cubic meters of fresh water annually from the Yangtze River in southern China. So it was just a really outstanding opportunity for people to take advantage of that field trip. The Chinese Academy of Science is they do incredible work. And we're thinking already about partnering with them again for another conference. That's just how successful it was. We typically, as an association, do have an international conference, every 2 years has typically been the trend. So we're going to continue to do that work and continue to strengthen the relationships that we have with national partners. One thing that we've seen with JARA, which is our Journal of American Water Resources publication, that's also around 50 plus years old, is we are getting really in the highest percentage in the last couple of years of international manuscript submissions. And we've got a significant amount from Asia as compared to the last couple of years. And I think that's really saying something about the work that we're doing and the presence that we do have when we have the opportunity to partner internationally.
Ni hao. So yeah, I'm ready for your next conference in China. I know 1 or 2 words in Chinese after my trip because everybody spoke English. So
right.
So, do you have international chapters yet, or just you're doing the conferences in various places?
Oh, that's such a good question. We do not have international sections yet. And, I would think that if we did, we would start with, probably our Canadian friends, perhaps. But, that's a great question. And I think that there's certainly opportunities to develop that, particularly because we've had such long relationships with some of our international partners. So yeah, that will be, something that we'll have to think about in the next coming years.
Well, if you also get interested in Mexico, Texas with Water features a number of Q&A interviews with individuals from Mexico, and also the 2 commissioners for the International Boundary and Waters Commission. So there's a plug. That's called a plug. I just put a plug.
That's a great plug. I would love to learn more about that. That sounds like a wonderful opportunity.
So what do you hear from your members are kind of the big water issues they're trying to get ahead of, that they see coming down the road, that they're thinking about? How do I get ahead of those? Any themes in particular have emerged?
I haven't particularly heard of any things. I mean, I think climate change is a big one that I hear about. The green algae and some obstacles and issues with that. Honestly, it's so diverse between what issues are, because it sort of depends on where you're geographically located, right? And so when I traveled to the different sections to experience their meetings, and then we've also had our 4 meetings this year, it's just so diverse. I can't really pinpoint one theme. I think, and that's the other, part about being from a multidisciplinary approach, that you're going to have all the different voices at the table about what the exact priority should be. And it's also about coming together and deciding on the consensus of that. But for someone who's not a water professional, this has been an incredible learning opportunity for me, because I didn't realize even the impact that, things that I take for granted every day, there is an enormous amount of thought and process and research and project planning and, frankly, grant management and fighting for dollars at the agency level to make sure that our environment is protected and our drinking water is clean, and all of those pieces. And I think those are things that, someone like me as a layperson, not in the water resource management profession, I just don't have a lot of information on. And I think that's also an interesting opportunity at the same time for us, because associations, particularly small associations, we have a hard time telling our story. and telling it well and screaming from the top of our lungs in the trees. And because we don't want to come across as sort of bragging or look at me, but in reality, we do. We do big work, right? Water resource professionals do big work, and our work matters. And we need to tell our stories better, and we need to tell our members stories better because they are impactful and they are significant.
I attended the Baltimore conference last year, and the day before that, I held a workshop with Aaron Wolf. Actually, Aaron Wolf let me hold the workshop with him, talking about water disputes and mediation. And I went to the conference after that, and that's, one of the things that you were talking about there that I loved so much about the conference was just the variety and diversity of issues. Because this is a massive oversimplification, but if you're in Texas, you're talking about droughts and floods and how you're paying for the next water supply. That's most of the conversation right now here. And so you go to different parts of the country and, like you say, they're talking about algae, algal blooms, and they're talking about dam removal and, much more discussion about climate change than we are having here at the moment. And so that's one of the things I love about conferences, and your conferences in particular are a great way for somebody who wants to really get a variety of issues in front of them, be able to sample them. They can go to one of your conferences and hear about a whole bunch of things that they wouldn't hear about otherwise staying at home. So
I will absolutely agree with that. Having attended my first AWRA conference in November, which was in Salt Lake, for me, it's just quite an incredible experience. I started in January, and, I'm planning it and I'm leading up to this event that I've never been at, that, all these people for so many years, for decades, really, very loyal members and partners and stakeholders, from both the private and the public sector have attended this conference many, many times. And I'm sort of meeting with them and talking to them throughout the year. And then finally I get to meet everyone. And it was just such an incredible opportunity to see not only that, you sort of the diversity within the information that's being exchanged, but also how the private and public, academic, practitioner, sort of how those big sectors all work together, and the conversations that they have, I thought was incredibly interesting. And then, in part of that, then you have these sort of solution providers as our exhibitors and sponsors. One of the things that we did, I thought was very successful this year, is we actually took all the different we took some leaders from each sector of water resource management, whether it's like legal, consultant, government, academic, practitioner, all the different pieces. And we sort of broke them out between different tables, and then allowed our emerging leaders and students to come and interview folks for 10 minutes before jumping to the next table. Because oftentimes when you're in school, you don't know, what position or criteria for a position would make you happy. You're doing research, but, do you want to be a teacher? Maybe I want to work in the field. Maybe I'd like to look at the legal or quality or equity aspects of water resource management. There's just so many layers, right? And I thought that even for me, who, I'm kind of living and doing this work and learning this organization, it wasn't until I fully got to see that I was able to grasp just how many layers they are. And it's just incredibly exciting. It's just really wonderful to be a part of.
That sounds like speed dating.
Yes. Yeah. We had some good dates. It was wonderful.
Well, what I love about that, and what I like about your conferences, is that, we, in the water community, we tend to be in our silos a lot of times. There's the, engineering silo, and the environmental scientists, and the, legal silo and all that. And conferences are like you say, they're a great opportunity for cross-pollination and for people to get out of their silo a little bit, and that benefits everyone. So I'm going to go to our last question.
Okay.
So how can someone listening to our podcast today find out more about the AWRA? What are the ways that they can find out what you're doing and maybe become
great and come hang out and join people? First thing I would say is go to our website at www.awra.org and check out some of the events that are coming up with our conferences and webinars. Be looking for some additional offerings later in the spring as we think about some new programs that we're trying to launch. Like I said, we do have those technical committees, and we're always looking for people who want to step up, do some research, partner, get involved, network. These are really opportunities to make it your own. This isn't a top-down committee structure, and so we're just so open to making sure that we provide opportunities for people to really engage in the committee that makes the most sense for them or that they're most passionate about. I would say if you are in a state with a state section, please get involved with their work. They're doing incredible things. I was at the Florida section annual, or just one of their summer meetings actually, in August. And they do a lot of really great work engaging the young community and emerging leaders there. So that if any time that you want to get involved with something locally and meet your peers and colleagues, or maybe you've just moved to a different state and you're starting a new position and you're already in your career, that's where you can find your people, is really looking at our state sections, as well as our student chapters, which we didn't talk a lot about. But if you are a student or an emerging leader, please check out our student chapters. We have 24 student chapters. Some are developing all the time. And if you go on our website, you'll see all the universities and that are on that page, and you can click on them to find out more information. And I think probably lastly, if you'd like to just create a free account, you can log on and do that. Therefore, you will receive our newsletters, any updated information, anything that we're sharing about what's happening in water resources. We put that out on our listserv. So that's a great opportunity to stay connected.
Great. It's been so much fun talking with you today. I appreciate your techno tolerance. And we had, I don't know, that happens with Talk Plus Water a lot. It seems like, we have kind of a mini rehearsal and then, we start over. But it went well both times, I thought.
Good. Well, I've enjoyed speaking with you today, and I appreciate all the work that you do with your publication and with this podcast. I think you are engaging the audience in ways that it's really quite critical, right? To have these conversations and to continually find connections between not only what we're doing in Texas, but what we're doing around the United States and the world. And so anytime that I can support your efforts in the mission of the work you do, by all means, please contact me.
Oh, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I hope that there will be additional opportunities in the future for us to collaborate.
Great. Me too.
So this has been Talk Plus Water, the podcast associated with Texas Plus Water newsletter, which provides timely information on the spectrum of Texas water issues, including science, policy, and law. My guest today was Dresden Farrand, Executive Vice President and CEO of the American Water Resources Association. Texas Plus Water is published jointly by the Meadow Center for Water and the Environment at Texas State University, the Texas Water Journal, and the Texas Water Resources Institute at Texas A&M. You can sign up for Texas Plus Water by visiting texaspluswater.org/newsletter. My name is Todd Bottler, the host of Talk Plus Water. Let's talk water again soon.